Hello, Shaz. How you doing today? I'm doing pretty good. I was gonna do the black sweater and glasses thing, and then I thought, where are my glasses? And then also I was like, we're the last week. We're just gonna do this normally, because this is supposed to segue into a normal blog. So I'm just gonna wear my walkabout Shaz clothes. This is what I usually. Oops, sorry. I usually wear cool T-shirts, yeah, and board shorts, yeah. So, walkabout Shaz. That's what we're doing. I don't know, maybe I'll put the sweater back on if I feel like it. But yeah, that's the point of this, is to have reviewed my life, walked myself to a position where I feel comfortable now creating new narratives, and then go back and review at the end of 2019, start to have a dialogue with myself. But so, therapy, I guess, yeah. Personal therapy, check my blind spots, put them out there for other people too. Do of myself what I am asking of others, which is checking yourself for false narratives, because the theme of modern civilization to be the purposeful denial of objective reality to support power structures. But I'm afraid that now there's not many people who actually work on establishing objective reality, and we're all just kind of fucking following, circling the drain downwards with false narratives. And that's a little scary. When you look at the top, you're like, someone knows what's going on though, right? Someone has to. But I'm not sure if there's a mastermind behind all this. That's what when I read Toynbee earlier this year, civilizations fail because the elites no longer are practical at problem solving. They're no longer solving our problems. They're just worshiping images of their past, and that explains like the whole George Bush going into Iraq, and they were cavalier and flippant about going in there. Now I've established three different ways that it can go. They could be malicious actors. They can be ignorant actors, or the world could just be as it is, and they're right, and I'm being naive with my idealism. So if we investigate their, I wrote this morning, if we investigate their story and try to find out if the world is actually as it is, give them the most credit, we'll find out how much is malicious and how much is, well, that's what it is. We take their word for it and investigate the story and see if it holds water. And then in that way, we find out if the world truly is just as it is, as Ben Rhodes tells us, Obama's main narrator, or if these people are ignorant. Because that's another thing. If we investigate the story and now we prove that the world isn't like, we don't have to have perpetual war. This isn't the only way to run the world, to have an American empire with colonies and voluntary invasions and bullshit. So now, though, investigating their story will reveal how much of their story is bullshit. And then now we've taken away the ignorance excuse, because we've just educated you and educated everyone because we've done it in a transparent way. Then all we're left with is the malicious actors. And those are the enemies, the ones who, after we've disarmed them of logic and we've presented an objective view of the world, now the only way you can still deny reality is because you're a malicious actor. And then those are the ones we have to deal with and prosecute in prison. This is coffee flavored milk. I thought there was some coffee left, but there's not. So I took like this much coffee and then like this much milk. And this is going to make me phlegmy, as dairy is prone to do. But Shaz is putting on that weight, so I'm drinking as much and eating as much as I can. Maybe I'll get up to 200-pound Shaz. I was 200-pound Shaz once before. 205, 210. I came into this house about 165, and now I'm about 180. That's crazy. 180, 185 maybe. I'm 190 on the scale with all my clothes on. Yeah, I'd say half muscle, half fat. I'm developing a little bit of push-ups. Pull-ups are becoming a little hard. Still doing the pull-ups, but a little bit hard. The grip just doesn't come as fast as the muscle. My hands slip off the bar. I'll work on it. Look at these calluses. Not the best calluses, not the worst. That right there, like, that's your man award. When you in the gym, I see girls with calluses too. I'm like, get it? The fucking hands that work. That's cool. Farmer's hands. These are little baby calluses. Farmer's hand, the whole thing will be a fucking callus. It's just like a baseball mitt. The fingers get fatter. Fucking working with your hands makes your... It's interesting. Anyways, we're going to finish this. We got 5 hours we're going to do. It's 12:17. Walkabout Shaz. We're reconciling my whole life, and then we're going to reconcile the things I'm doing right now. Go after some money. O-B. O-B. What does that mean? O-we. Who we going to go after some money by the end of the year? Shaz is going to have some money back in his pocket. Oh my God. You don't even know the things he's going to do with some money in his pocket again. I was a little down yesterday. I was like, man, I'm tired of being broke. It's weird. When I read through my life, I go through all the emotions I was going through in my life. And so reading through this Occupy Wall Street thing, which we're going to finish today, I'm going through the emotions I did in Occupy Wall Street, which was I was tired of being broke. I was like, fuck, dude, by the end of it, and we're getting towards the end of it, I was like, man, I'm fucking... Yeah, I don't know if Max is my friend. We're going to finish up the Max emails. I don't know if he's my enemy. I still don't. I'm like, some of these emails, I'm like, man, Max is a good guy. I should have kept in contact with him. And then some of them, I'm like, fucking... But then that's what it is. This year is about talking to my subconscious and realizing that other people might not be... They might be ignorant. They might not be malicious. But that's why you go, give them the benefit of the doubt. Act as if they're ignorant and not malicious. Take their story, which is the world as it is. Admit that maybe I'm being naive, and let's just walk from one end of the spectrum to the other, and you should be able to. When I clean a house, when I work out, whatever I do, I try to be comprehensive. When I did real estate, I started at the bottom of the market and moved my way up. That's what we're going to do ideologically, as Shaz helps the world make sense of the modern era and makes a lot of money while doing it. Does a lot of drugs, does a lot of women. Shaz is going to live a good life. Am I idealistic? I am idealistic, but I'm also like to live because I'm alive. And I've never subscribed to the idea that you should be a pure fucking... Zealots. Zealots is interesting. Zealotry. Reading the anarchist history. We need to read more history. We need to look at the people who came before who tried to fucking speak on this earlier. And then the Spanish Civil War. I'm up to this. I just did the Woodcock. I have the last 75 pages in that book. So I just I finished his history of Spain. Woodcock, I don't agree with him completely. I think he's a little naive. Didn't realize how technology would... Well, that's what it is. Stop getting mad at people, Shaz. And what they don't say is a space for you to create your own lane. And then don't get mad at people for not saying what you want to say, because that means that your voice is needed in the world. The same thing with arts, with other stuff. The highest moral ground is compassion. Have compassion and then add your voice to the choir of the human dialogue. That is the highest form of reasoning coming out of calmness and a good workout this morning. And I started chatting with those girls who work out around me, that group of like fitness girls that I've been talking about a little bit. About 9 a.m. we all get in there and work out. Just little stuff. You using this weight? What's going on? Let them know I'm a normal person. You slow play this stuff because I have no money in my pocket. So I have no desire or ability to really get to know someone. But as opposed to just being that stranger in the gym who just grunts a lot, now I'm like, hey, what's up? So I'm about probably 1 or 2 interactions away from giving up my name, and I don't know. I'm trying to figure out with stuff like this, like 8, 10 girls, and then like 3 or 4 cute ones, or like my type that would probably be in my dating pool. You gotta figure it out like 1 or 2. You can't just go out there and what is it? The young bull says to the old bull. They're standing on top of a hill. He's like, look at all these cows down there. Let's go run down there and fuck them all. And then the old bull says, let us walk down this hill and fuck one at a time. Slow down and focus in life and love gives you the most reward. It's just an idea. But anyways, starting to say what's up to them. That's another thing. What am I? Am I running for president? Am I starting a publishing company? Am I doing a dialogue with myself to help my own mental sanity? Am I taking a break from real estate? Am I moving to the West Coast to live with my parents and work in their insurance agency? Am I merely just trying to finish a writing project? Am I... What is your motive, Shaz? I never know. I'll just do stuff instinctually. And I was like, let me do videos about my whole life based on these breadcrumbs, some of which are things I've done, some of which are my artistic works. And then, and now we're in the fifth week of that. Am I going to do videos tomorrow? Maybe not. I have a lot to do. I have 5 hours to do today, and then, 30 hours next week, 5 hours a day. That's the only way we're going to knock this out. 10 minutes? Chaz, come on. Well, I forgot where I left off. We'll do this whole thing. I think I was doing it back and forth. Hey, you have a copy of that meetings book? I just sent you an email. Yeah, I'll be back Friday. Can give it to you then. You can read it in like an hour. Some good pointers that reinforce natural inclinations. Cool, thanks. It's an OWS book. Pass it along with facilitation when you're done. Also, the guy's blog is interesting. Cool, I will. He errs more on the autocratic side, which I think you're a little less sensitive to than me. Yeah, not too sensitive to autocratic. Well, it depends on how he goes about it. I'm fine with people being autocratic about processes, as long as they don't make you feel like they're being autocratic. It's an art, not science. Regarding it, wait, let's stop real there. Max, idealistically, is not a libertarian or an anarchist, obviously. Though Occupy Wall Street was started by an anarchist. That's what I started to gather. The main push was we live in an authoritarian world, more and more coercive, mentally what the narratives are giving us, depriving us of our real history, also politically, capping Congress at 435 members, having this two-party system, which were emotionally manipulated from both sides to join, and ridiculed when we even question. Authoritarian in the way that they wage their wars through the unitary executive. The president is supposed to go through Congress to wage war, but since George Bush Jr. and then defended also by Barack Obama at his Nobel Prize acceptance speech, no less, just war theory, we're allowed to wage a preemptive strike whenever we want. That was Barack Obama accepting the Nobel Peace Prize, supporting that argument. We asked him, why don't we prosecute the war criminals in the previous administration? No, we're not looking backwards. You see, son, I want to stay alive. Power broker, non-idealist. Is Max a power broker? He's okay with autocratic as long as they don't make you feel like they're being autocratic. That's a very dangerous thing to say. That's what I'm sensitive to. My emotions, as I get them out in these videos, and why I allow myself to be a fool on these videos, is because by giving people the benefit of the doubt and doing that reasonable one side to another process, I lose some of my sincerity and I get a little bit confused. No one can listen to bullshit and not be affected, at least a little bit. So I feel like emotion skips reason, for bad and for good. So you let the emotions come out sometimes and you record them, because there might be some wisdom here, which is lost along the way of sophistry and all these people just trying to convince you of bullshit. Now, is Max a malicious actor? He's a teacher. I met his father. He brought his father down to the occupation, and I went and shook his father's hand and said, Max is a really good guy. Like this, everyone respects him. We're about the same age. Now probably mid to late 30, at just 35, 36. Back then he was like 29, 30. Maybe he was 28 back then. Maybe he was a year younger than me. We're going to read his articles, and we'll get more of a sense of Max. One of the smartest people down there, if not the smartest person I met down there, which is why no one else I emailed like this. Everyone else, we were organizing, doing other stuff. Some of the people I just emotionally flamed, and I can find those emails, and they capture my feelings. Kind of burn bridges when you do that, though. I did that a little bit to Max, but the stuff that I did with him were like little insects trapped in amber to go back and investigate the prehistoric period. Like these are like our amber conversations, which, yeah, but in the amber that I'm analyzing, I'm looking at that. That concerns me, people like Max who believe that it's not the process, but we just need the right people in power. No, the processes are corrupting. Bureaucracy and authoritarianism is corrupting. And you can't count on everyone being a saint. So you have to have a good process which devolves power back downwards to the horizontals. But Max and other people come into this carrying the baggage of the old world. And the old world has convinced us through our education and our narratives that people need strong authority or else they devolve into chaos. That might be a myth. Modern science is disproving that. Modern economic theory is disproving that. They thought that you could just explain most economics with selfish personal interest, but that doesn't explain Wikipedia, doesn't explain, and now they're talking about who's they, fucking scientific people. Well, these psychological reasons why people do work are actually as important or more important than the personal benefit reasons, and people will contribute willingly to a communal cooperative type. Yeah, we're cooperative creatures. Kropotkin in Mutual Aid discussed this. We need another Kropotkin. Maybe that's where Shaz needs to put his efforts. But that will be when we do this process of analyzing from, take the given narrative as it's presented and give it all of the benefit of the doubt. And then walk your way all the way to objective reality. By analyzing that, finding the faults in it, disproving those faults, and then now taking away the excuse of the given narrative and ignorance of objective reality. And now we get everyone on the same page. Objective reality. As objective as we can make it with a cooperative effort, intellectual effort. And now we can actually pinpoint and identify the malicious actors, and then we can prosecute accordingly. That is the Shaz barbaric theory of world peace and justice in the modern age. The antidote for a suicidal, kleptocratic, hegemonic, oligarchic, whatever, the answer for the world. I'm wrapping it together. I'm wrapping it up. This has not been a waste of 5 weeks. I just repeat that to myself every night before I go to bed. It's an art, not a science. Or regarding your email, there's nothing wrong with summarizing people's points. It's a tool I use when I think it's needed, though I only do it in certain situations. The problems was you were getting all the points wrong, or so it sounded like. Your summaries of my points and Jason's points seemed completely different from what we'd said. Weed, in my experience, is not a great drug for listening to other people. Part of why I don't smoke. Come on, Max. You don't smoke because you're a little bitch. And you don't want to lose control of yourself because your identity is so important. It's just values of people's lives. You take yourself too seriously. People who do drugs don't take themselves as seriously, so they allow themselves to become a little sillier because drugs make you silly. That's a fucking bottom line. Lol. I know it's more complex. As for rules, I'm not a stickler. I'm not sure if that's how you spell stickler, Max, but we'll let it pass. About rules, I'm for whatever works in a given circumstance. Plus, the thing about summarizing is it's always a little dangerous because you're trying to boil down people's whole comments to a few words, and that risks making them feel simplified or even that their point was missed. Yeah, I saw the hole I dug. Shut up for the rest of that meeting. It was like, Shaz, you are doing a terrible job at facilitating. I was like, and once you're stoned, you got that fucking in you. I'm like, I don't even have to do this. So yeah, for sure. I got you. I was just trying to make peace, y'all. I use it if the group seem to be going in circles or back and forth between two ideas, or when I think the group really is having trouble understanding what someone is saying. Haha. You should see me do the kitchen meetings sometimes. Oh, man. Oh, man. I'm all about efficient, fun, playful, and you're right about smiling is key. I've read some about the psychological feedback loop between smiling and feeling happy. And in this context, smiling is also important because it's good for the group to think the facilitator is enjoying himself or herself. True. They take a lot of cues from the facilitator. One of the things I do, since I'm usually talking so fast, I have a big personality, is to really request feedback and make eye contact. The best lessons come from people with different personalities than who you facilitated, who have positive and critical feedback. There's a girl like that in Occupy Farms. We shared a car ride up on the farm. The next day, she gave me some good info, and some good and bad. I read all this already. Huh. I didn't realize I was on the last one. And these fucking 5-hour-a-day fucking video things are a marathon. They ain't that bad. I could talk for 8 hours a day. I should try that. The Shaz filibuster. Cool. Wait. Cool. Lame? So naturally, I told her she should probably facilitate the next meeting, and she's totally on board now. That's cool. Jackie Dandelion. Very cool chick. Massage therapist. Innuendo wink. Huh? We're still bros. Often a good move. Don't know her. Yeah, me and Max never really talked about chicks. I didn't talk about money. Did I talk about chicks? Yeah, with people who I'd bro out with. I didn't bro out with Max. But I think he had his eye on M. That's why he was letting her stay at his place. But that's what it is. You have to have your values and your structures in place because people are going to hook up. People are going to fall into romances. And if the values and the structures are in place, and if it's a advance that's not wanted, then people don't feel weird. It's like, yo, I understand people hooking up in this movement, but me and you ain't gonna happen. Some people felt weird, and then when advances are, and then you don't want that fucking office politics type, like, yeah. I already did that, and I had this fucking girl who was like fucking, she was following all my moves online in our little groups, trying to say, Shaz is an asshole. It's like, no, I just ain't fucking you anymore. You just ain't getting that good dick, that's all. You just fucking, she told me once when we were like, I was like, I don't think we're gonna keep doing what we're doing, and she got really mad, or whatever the fuck way I said it. I have to get better at breaking stuff off. More honest, direct communication. But that takes courage. That's what it is, really. You fucking lie or avoid the word. Correcting your word and have the courage to then use it appropriately. Not maliciously, not to victimize or bully people, but to... If you're going to use your word and you have to use it in order to establish truth, but it's going to bring bad consequences onto you, don't have the courage to face those consequences. Don't hide from your responsibility of your word. So I was wishy-washy or fucking passive-aggressive or however, which I think passive-aggressive, I defend that as a tool of warfare, but that's where relationships shouldn't be warfare, shouldn't be competition, even if you're breaking up with someone. Most of the people I've dated are friends. I don't do scorched earth. That's how do you defend yourself as a moral human being, believing that there's some people you can just justify being assholes to. No. I was assholes to people in relationships, but that's growing. But this girl, I was like, yeah, no, we're just not. And she's like, it wasn't even good sex anyways. You weren't even good in bed. I was like, the fuck are you talking about, bitch? You can't fucking retroactively take back the good sex. Nah, I was there, you were there. I was a witness. We got down. We had to get, that was most of the connection. She got down. She was cool. She woke me up fucking me. That was like fucking awesome. That's like a bucket list type thing. You wake up, a girl's on you, you're like, yeah, this is what. Some people talk about consent, this and that. When you're in a relationship, and we had slipped into a relationship where you start to understand how sex is initiated and this and that, we were fucking all about it. I was like, cool. And then that morning she told me, oh, by the way, I might have a thing. And then I was like, nah, that's not cool. That's not cool. But, I mean, look at it from her perspective. She went to the protest. She had her art studio down the street. Picked up the scraggly Shaz who's fucking sharing a joint with her. And obviously I'm just kind of like feeling if the window's open. I'm like, this girl's spending time with me. We were at, where were we at? Battery Park, looking at the ocean. We did a couple things like that. So it's like, she invites me to a party. So then we go back to her place after the party. And then like, I miss her sometimes because, yeah, that was my reactionary measure. Like, she did me wrong. I got checked out. And then fucking HPV is something that you can fucking treat and it cycles out of your system. It's not like life-threatening. I think I emailed her recently being like, what's up? And that's why you stay friends with your exes, because if you invited them into your life, there's a reason why you liked them. And maybe we won't fuck each other again. I'm cool with that. But, like, these are good people. She was good people. She was a little funny in the head. But like most protesters I have my idealism blind spots. I think they do too. Like, I don't know, I wonder what she's doing sometimes. She was another one who was a model for for the art studios. They can go and these girls make $20 an hour or whatever, and they go in and pose nude for the artist. Yeah. So she had a classic figure. She had a nice and sweet. She was sweet. She was very loving. To pick up a fucking homeless Shaz and offer me comfort and shit like that. And yeah. And some of these girls, they act stupid, but they just need more love. Like, I could see her. She was just like a feral cat who needed more love. she had flamed an ex, and that should have been a red flag. She was talking about some guy who won't fuck with her anymore because like she doesn't know why, and you can tell she was still caught up on the guy. I was like, it's because you could fucking you got that crazy switch. You're fucking. I should have known. It's like you not only have the crazy switch, your hand's right there next to the crazy switch. You fucking. But like people like that mellow the fuck out after a good relationship. I know I've had. Shaw, when I broke up with her, jumped on my back and tried to choke me out. She was so pissed. You bring me down to Puerto Rico. Now you're saying you're going to fucking Chicago to drive that car across country. You're gonna leave me here alone? I was like, this is choose your own adventure, girl. I was thinking about it for weeks before we broke up. I was like, I really need to tell her. Because like we've got together, we've broken up, we got together. I need to let her go. If I really love her, I need to. And that's one where I stepped up and had that hard conversation. But I was like, if I really love her, I need to have a break so she can heal. And it took us years, 2-3 years before we were on normal. She won't fuck me with someone else's fucking pussy. We're friends, but she told me once I was gonna meet up. She had some friends. She went to Portland, lived in Portland a little bit, which was really good for her to establish her own identity. We were both in New York. Fuck, I should get to this because then I'll get to that eventually. But yeah, her friend from Portland was visiting New York. I was like, I want to hang out with you guys. She was like, I'm not sure if I'm gonna introduce my friend to you. And I was like, we become different types of people. She went and dated someone like me. I'm a little bit too. People I've dated since her. She's like, it's funny, the dominatrix girlfriend, and now she's more proper and she's like slow and steady and shit. No, she still gets down. She's still wild. But we cross each other. Like when I met her, she had like all this experience and I was like coming up, and then we met at this middle, and then now I'm still like fucking doing crazy shit, but she's kind of like leveled off. She's still got her wildness, but like I think the girls get it out of them young. She got a lot of fucking crazy shit out of her young, and she just got a $4 million plus listing. It's fucking, that's like boom. That's like 6-figure income as long as she sells it. As long as she sells it. She needs my help. That's why I have to finish this shit up so I can go back to helping my friends. I might be a little crazy, but I'm also good at making money when I want to. Mentor. I'm a fucking mentor to fucking addicts who overdose. Mentor to real estate agents who fucking don't sell shit. Like, you judge me by the people that like I keep in my life that I try to promote. I wonder about that sometimes. I told my folks last night, I was like, yeah, that girl who I did heroin with, I tell my folks everything. I was like, that girl last year that I was hanging out with who was like, I was doing those crazy drugs with, I was like, she overdosed recently. They're like, what, is she okay? I'm like, yeah, no, she came back, she stopped breathing, but she found fentanyl in her heroin and she still did it. Fucking dumbass. We'll deal with her. I don't know how I'm going to deal with her. I have an idea of how I'm going to deal with her. We'll see. Sometimes Shaz overreacts, so I filter my ideas through waiting and seeing. That's where I learned how to meditate pretty much, by realizing I was overreacting. Addie, way back when she was 17, chasing her in a car, was like, I look crazy. Let's chill. Before we have emotional outbursts, let's chill. And that's usually when I'm feeling, just like last night, or whenever you're feeling down, or even when you're feeling good, allow it to filter through a couple of different parts of your brain. Look at that, now I'm starting to get phlegmy from the fucking milk. But it's got that protein, and the protein makes you big and strong. Where the fuck were we at? Oh yeah, Jackie Dandelion. Yeah, she just gave me shit, and I was like, cool, what are your thoughts? All right, let's empower you. That's what the anarchist way. It's like, you don't like the fucking authority we're creating? Great, let's make you a part of it so you could correct it. Often a good move. That's what it is. It's someone who's not corruptible by, I don't never really want power, I just want to chill. Wake me in my own bed after full rest to make love before eating a large breakfast of meats and fats, smoking deep in contemplation within gardens with my second cup of coffee, and I'm good. I don't need to be a king or a prince or a Occupy Farmers was like, we don't trust your authority. Here, give it. Fucking do your own shit. But then, I don't know. Yeah, I saw the writing on the wall from talking to Max, because Max is my window into the organizational mind state. And I was like, there's too much, Shaz. This is a wave I just got to duck under. Can no longer ride it, but we'll get to that. All right, we're almost done with Max. But often the people who are most reliable about getting things are also inclined to take on too much, to worry too little about their own psychological state. Oh, Max, heavy is the head that wears the crown, right? In your worldview, you have the autocrats who are able to, as long as they trick those under the rule. This is the same white man's burden fallacy of Kipling, is that there are those who bring order to the rest of wild, chaotic nature. That's what we find. It might even be subconscious, but as opposed to like the anarchist or the idealist who believes that natural expressions, or like the Zenist, natural expressions are good, sincerity of purpose will correct towards truth. Sincerity and honesty correct towards truth. That's what we really do want to identify different ideological strains of people's perceptions of the world. See, because in his is that, no, we need these leaders, a vanguardism. This is where the anarchists broke with the communists. This is his vanguardism coming out, because then we're like, oh, but this vanguard needs rest though too. They need comfort. And then the pigs start wearing pants, as George Orwell's fucking Animal Farm. Is that you have leaders who say, no, you need us just temporary, just to lead the revolution. But the leaders start looking a lot like the old masters you were revolting against. They start staying at the W, Pete. What the fuck is his name? Let me look that guy up real quick. Shaz has no regard for deadlines. Pete W. Hotel Occupy Wall Street. Let's see if fucking the internet pulls something up. Occupy Wall Street protesters stay at a $700 a night hotel. New York Post. Good old New York Post. Here's a guy. That's not the guy I'm talking about, but they got a picture of him. That's another guy. Maybe that guy backed out of the movement. Here's the guy I'm talking about. Pete Dutro. What up, Pete? I should fucking hit him up for an interview sometime. Pete was one of those guys. Look, we're trying to organize all this rabble, all these fucking dumbasses, and we're the ones bringing order. Yeah, we get fucking tired and we need a fucking hotel. We're not, pigs aren't meant to fucking walk around without pants. It's not, pants aren't fucking a human thing. They're a comfort thing. It's not, that doesn't mean we're becoming the humans. We're still Animal Farm. We're still representing the animals. Just keep working on that project that we said we're working on. Hell no, we won't go unless we get goose down pillows. A key Occupy Wall Street leader and another protester who leads a double life as a businessman ditched fetid tents and church basements for rooms at a luxurious hotel that promises guests can unleash their inner Gordon Gekko. The $700 per night hotel last week hosted both Pete Dutro, one of a select few OWS members on the powerful finance committee, and Brad Spitzer, a California-based analyst who not only secretly took part in protests during a week-long business trip, but offered shelter to protesters in a swanky platinum card room. Tents are not for me, he confessed when confronted. See, that business guy, that's like his business trip, so whatever. But Pete was using fucking... That's why I went to make money, too. Yeah, Dutro, 35, one of only a handful of OWS leaders in charge of the movement's $500,000 in donations. Back then, it was $500,000. Checked in on Wednesday, the night after police emptied Zuccotti Park. While hundreds of his rebel brethren scrambled to find shelter in church basements, Dutro chose the 5-star, 58-story hotel with its lush rooms. And I knew everything was going to be a clusterfuck in the morning, he told the Post. How would I get over the bridge when they were shutting it down? He said he spent $500 of his own money to get the room because he wanted a good night's rest. Well, that's the thing. If he pays for his own money, that's the thing, because I like nice shit, and I made money before, and I've stayed at nice hotels like that before. I think I spent like $300, $350. I don't think I spent $500 on a hotel room. Well, because I was doing like a family vacation. That's the thing, is like people are like mad at Pete, like that's why you got to be even-handed. They're like, Pete, and then he's like, well, it's my money. He has a tattoo shop or some shit. But it's like we didn't have. That's what it was. That's why I was trying to get finance to do an audit, because it's like it looks bad when you guys are doing paper receipts, you have no official bookkeeping, and this is happening. So you say you spent your own money, but all we have is your word. We don't have any transparent auditable processes. So what I was trying to tell those guys was like, we're not trying to get people in trouble for the past, because I noticed that too as a tactic, just get people scared about money. Now people are even fucking anxious. There's this girl going around, this was totally malicious actor, telling people everyone had to account for all the money that they were spending on Occupy Wall Street for their taxes, and freaking people out. People are like, oh shit, I don't want to. Because when you just mention taxes, and these people, a lot of them never filed taxes in their life probably. And so there's someone running around talking about the tax liability of all this money. Everyone started freaking out. And maybe there is, maybe there isn't. Aren't we under a nonprofit? Can't we just write it off that way? We were under like the Tide Foundation, George Soros type nonprofit. But yeah, I was saying, let's not worry about the past and scare people. I wasn't fear mongering, but I was saying let's have a day zero onward of good accounting, and that got shut down. And that's where I was like, that's my theory of how to accept and at face value, giving you the benefit of the doubt, Pete. You paid for that out of your own money. Let's from here on forward have it best. Let's bring in an accountant, have an audit, have electronic bookkeeping, but no, because they knew that there wasn't going to be any donations. That's what I feel like people got to the. I don't know if Pete was one of those people, but they got to the top of our resource. He was definitely at the top of our finance. Him and a couple other people, and you recognize all these same people, and so Jeff in housing and these other people. They got to the top of our resources, and then they devolved them. Jeff allowed people to come in and party in the church and fuck shit up. I talked to the people. When I got in the church, I talked to people. My friend M, and I had other people who were giving me information who people don't really notice because they're just in the background. They're just quiet. But they see everything. And they're like, no, he called off the security. And then we had these guys come in from Jersey, and they party. And then that's the night that baptismal and the water from Jordan got spilled. And then the pastor's over here saying, oh my gosh, they did a coup and Jeff's gone. Jeff is the reason why your shit got fucked up. He's probably also the reason why your laptop got stolen. But Jeff also goes to the pastor's ear along with some of the other people and was like, hey, all this rabble, I'm trying, but they're animals. And then Jeff gave me that line too. I was like, Jeff, we're going to lose the church. You're not being responsible, and you're supposed to be the point person managing this whole church. You're not having better practices about securing it at night. And he looked around, he said, Shaz, why you want to help these people? Look at them. And it was like such a fucking devil type, I felt like I was in the devil's advocate. It was such a Shaz, why do you believe in human nature? Look at these people. They don't deserve your pity or your help. Let them be what they are. Animals. They have I was like, how long have you worked for the government, Jeff? And you're quiet, because the first person who speaks loses. Then Jeff looks at me and he's like, then turns away and he says, they wouldn't have me, Shaz. They wouldn't have me. I was like, motherfucker. That was a good line. I trust my intuition, and my intuition tells me I'm not sure either way still, if you're a malicious actor. Because maybe you are a guy who wanted to be in the government, couldn't, and now you're just abusing your power whichever way you can right now. He was proven to be a Republican operative in the past. They found out that he had worked for a Republican campaign to look up dirt on another Republican candidate. So I need to find out his last name. I could probably look him up through a picture, but that's why you have to do this Occupy Wall Street thing. I have to go find other people there, and we can all collaborate our stories. But then they took down that nycga.net. All of our dialogues were there, attached to our names. So we had the running dialogue of the whole movement growing from the first General Assembly to the creation to January, February, March. People were still communicating in that. That was a record of who we were and how we were associating. Why was that taken down, and who has access to that website? I have a couple leads. Shaz, the detective, has a couple leads, but it's going to take money and time to trace this stuff down. But often people who are, anyways, so yeah, it's a vanguardism of Max, that we need to protect the leaders of our movement and their psychological state because they're taking on too much. It's the most dedicated protesters are in most danger of burnout, most dedicated, and then the rabble in the park, the dead weight that's going to fall off. It's on all of us to avoid it, but we can also help each other, give positive feedback, not snapping at people, assuming the best, yeah. Yeah, but I don't feel like, I just don't like enabling the victim mentality. I tell people straight up, take care of yourself or you're useless. And that's true. I just think there's a nice way to say it. I've discovered it. Others have to. It might be a personal growth thing. Framing things negatively leads to a negative culture and more burnout. You're the tact. I'm the barbarian. This is Shaz leading with the ego. What if I had brought up, well, I hadn't read Anarchist Theory yet. But now I would bring up, Max, this thing, the whole energy of the movement came from our representatives. And the more we act authoritarian, like with a vanguard and autocrats and select few who are leading this supposedly leaderless movement, the more we replicate the power structures that we're trying to oppose. What do you have to say to that, Max? If you feel like people are being burned out, then that means we need to promote more people to positions of authority and have less authority in the first place, have more cooperative models. But Max is like, no, 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 no. We need more efficiency. I'm not so much trying to be tactful as trying to build good culture and habits. It's funny, in our group we have a guy named Wilson who's good with tact. Lets me play my role. Yeah, Wilson was a guy in our Occupy Farms group who was like, he'd gone to school and he was about farms. So when we did the farms group, he was like, oh, me, I want to be in it. I was like, come on in. And they brought that cute girl and they started hooking up. And I remember one night at the farms, we were all playing music. I had my guitar, or someone's guitar, and we were doing like guitar karaoke where we would just look up old rock and roll songs, and I could play any four chords pretty much. And we just fucking, we made some memories at that farm. The girl was a really good singer. Everyone loved her. She was beautiful, really good singer, super awesome at yoga. And then they were like our king and our queen, because he was a guy who went to school for farming with a degree in fucking agriculture and shit. And then she was like really into it too for some reason. I forgot why. And so when they started getting together, we were like, oh, like our group was a really healthy, cute group. I model the behavior I want to exhibit, or sometimes I do. I think it's good to have multiple tools to use. Open source idea, but I get what you're saying. We all have to own our actions, which means being civil. This is an interesting org for personal growth, but I don't want to monopolize your time, Max, of many tasks. Keep in touch, and when I'm in the city, I'll hand off that book. Yes, great place for personal growth. I don't know when I've learned so much over a short time. Have fun on the farm. That's something we agree on. Is these convergences spur on the evolution of consciousness required in order to create a new world. That's why we need more of them. So Max and I both agree, like, it's not that we're agreeing in principle, and I don't think he's a malicious actor. If I had to like say, it's like more than 50% he's a good guy. Like, I'm always suspicious about everything, but like you have to call it eventually. And so more than 50% he's good, less than 50%, and there might be subconscious shit too, or I might be wrong. These might be blind spots of me, but we all agree that this is an amazing place to be, and we're all experiencing growth here. I have these confos all the time. Thanks, man. And this cafe is closing, so I gotta run. See you soon, for sure. Takes care. Maximilian. Yeah, people at the farm told us that the owner of the farm, she stayed up all night with this guy named Jack, who I wonder what happened to Jack. He's the guy in Staten Island who was letting us crash at his apartment. And yeah, this reflects a lot like Spanish Civil War, or Civil War Spain, where the anarchists created collectives and communes and collectivized the factories, and they were actually running the trains and keeping everything running. And that's what I just read in Woodcock's book, is that like it works when you have people sharing an ideology and an identity. Shit'll work. You don't need fucking the corrupt elite few running everything. If people are motivated, they'll run society decently themselves, and that's what these little pockets within the Spanish Civil War proved. But then anarchists, being anti-authoritarian, are shitty at waging war, apparently. You need a central command for that. That's why when you join the military, you give up your Bill of Rights, because the military needs discipline. And that's one of the reasons why I went in. I was like, ooh, not for me. I think I have the discipline to do it. We just have to have the right values. I would give up my freedom and my autonomy and my independent thinking for the right fight, but I recognize that there's something stinky in there. Well, first and foremost, the commander-in-chief. I respect the president, and then so. But also I was young and impetuous. I did it more for experience than I did for ideology. I noticed that recently. Fuck. We're going to have to read his... I got 1 minute to rant, and then we're going to do 5 minutes an article, and we'll see if that works. I noticed that recently that ever since I was young, there's a dominant culture, dominant narratives. We didn't really have the internet. We had the beginnings of it, and we started to peek through the cracks. And when we did that underground newspaper, but I didn't know quite. Now I'm trying to create an alternative narrative that's objective reality. But back then I didn't even have that ambition. I just knew that there's more to the story than they were letting on. Everyone does. I think and then it gets pushed down to your subconscious or something, and it starts creating this psychosis that we have in modern society, and the depression and everything else. Because we all know the Iraq war was based off of lies, and yet it goes on unchallenged, and no one speaks about it. People don't even know we're still in Iraq and Afghanistan. Some people they don't realize the dollars and cents of those cons and how we're still paying for it. And I think a preponderance of injustice in the world just lowers everyone's morality a little bit. But we all get little bits and pieces. We all kind of know we're living a lie and being lied to constantly, but we don't ever really realize the scope because we're constantly distracted from knowing ourselves or knowing the real narrative of the world in which we live, which is horrifying if you think about it. You just have a lot of people who just are ignorant as to their own story and the story of their society. Life or death shit. There's weapons involved and police who will put you away for life if they won't kill you. How Occupy Wall Street is like a classroom. On October 15th, this is Max's article for the HuffPost. There's 3 of these. On October 15th, I watched a miracle of classroom management such as I would never have imagined possible. It didn't happen in the classroom, and there was no teacher. Of course, over the course of the evening, over 3,000 people had gathered in and around a dry fountain base in NYC's Washington Park Square. Returning from the earlier protests at Times Square, the attendees were agitated after a day of chanting and dancing, police barricades, and sometimes violent arrests. Word had spread of a possible illegal occupation of Washington Square Park that night. Meanwhile, a line of police officers stood at the entrances to the square, announcing to each arriving crowd that the park will close at midnight, i.e., you've been warned. A little after 10 p.m., a handful of facilitators from the Zuccotti Park occupation stood up on a grate that covers the water jets at the center of the fountain base and asked the mob to be seated. The General Assembly had begun. Since the protesters did not have permits for the PA systems, and because the Occupy movement is built around large General Assemblies, they developed an ingenious system for addressing hundreds or thousands of protesters without amplification. They call it the human mic. It works like this. If you want to speak, you yell, "Mic check!" Anyone who can hear you yells back, "Mic check!" The message travels through the crowd. When you have everyone's attention, you begin speaking, pausing every few words to let the message propagate. Those within earshot repeat your words in unison. Those farther away repeat it again, and so on. It takes 10 minutes to give a 3-minute speech, but everyone hears it. Thus, the General Assembly was called to order. In order to carry the speeches over the lip of the fountain to the more rambunctious crowd around it, several people stood up on the pillars around the lip to relay the message outward. There was only one real agenda item, of course. Would the crowd attempt to occupy the park that night? The legal team from Zuccotti Park made it clear, in case it wasn't already obvious, that anyone remaining in the park after midnight had a high probability of being arrestable. After some general announcements, the facilitators asked everyone to break up into smaller groups for 15 minutes to discuss the issue. By the time they called the meeting back together and began the collective discussion, it was 11 p.m., with the deadline an hour away, tensions high, and many eager to argue their case for or against occupation, as well as dozens of peripherally related issues. The protocol of the meeting was at risk. As facilitators began the discussion, dissidents on the fountain's rim began to shout for the mic. There are layers of protocol at work here, and the protocol of the human mic is the most fundamental. When you hear mic check, you answer, "Mic check!" If this protocol does not operate, no one can be heard. Thus, a tall man with a loud voice on the rim of the fountain was able to take control of the mic. Though his control was incomplete, the words carrying only partway through the crowd, he spoke for 2 or 3 minutes before one of the facilitators cut him off, shouting for the mic, while the man on the rim tried to continue his speech. I was seated near the center of the basin. Around me, people had begun to stand up. Stray voices were heard from every direction. It was at that moment that I realized how tenuous was the order of the meeting. Here we are, 3,000 people with 3,000 opinions, emotions high, short on time, ripe for chaos. It was incredible, really, that a meeting could even begun, much less successfully concluded, under these conditions. What would happen, I wondered, if this devolved into a shouting match, if the gathering turned from a meeting to a mob? With difficulty, one of the facilitators, a thin African American woman who could be seen leaning forward as she shouted, regained full control of the people's mic. Recognizing perhaps that their best hope against chaos lay in the facilitators, the crowd gradually threw its reunified voice behind her words. She explained the protocol for the meeting, how a list would be taken of those who wished to speak, and each would get their turn. She urged the speakers to be brief and to stay on topic. The crowd began to settle. At first, the names on the list were called. The first name on the list was called. Someone stood and spoke. It was not on topic. Another name, another speech. This one on topic. The meeting continued. There were no longer dissident voices. The human mic rang out across an otherwise silent mass of people. You could hear it filling the basin, then echoing far off in the surrounding crowd. The first couple speakers argued for occupation, but after them came many arguments against it. There was not enough planning and organization. The strategy had not been thought out. This was not the time to take a stand. And these arguments seemed to get more positive reactions from the crowd. At 11:45, one of the facilitators took a temperature check for the idea of not occupying that night. Through the hand signals that are standard usage at General Assemblies in the Occupy movement, the crowd indicated it was largely in favor of the idea, in favor of not occupying that night. A show of hands indicated that only 50 to 100 people were still considering staying past midnight. The meeting was adjourned. Somehow, under pressure with little way in the form of formal leadership, and without amplification or clearly established organization, 3,000 people had a civilized debate, and despite a wide range of opinions at the beginning of the meeting, they had reached something very close to consensus. In the end, as you'll know if you read the papers, 14 people stayed to get arrested at the Fountain Basin, a decision that was, of course, theirs to make. But no matter who stayed or left, what was incredible was the cooperation, the spontaneous agreement by thousands of strangers to abide by a set of protocols, to respect one another's right to speak, to assist each other in speaking, and to listen. In many ways, the protocols of the General Assembly reminded me of the protocols of the classroom, an ingenious, efficient system for getting the group's attention, a set of hand signals and other procedures to allow dissent and approval, confusion and parentheses to be efficiently communicated without diverting attention from the designated speaker or interrupting the flow of conversation, and a strong set of explicit values that underlies these procedures. Just as the clap-in or the raised finger for silence propagates throughout a classroom, drawing in students who may miss out on it the first time around, the mic check propagates through the crowd, carried from person to person, without the speaker needing to outshout the entire gathering. The silent applause with which the protesters indicate their approval of a speaker's word is used in classrooms across America as a means for students to show agreement with other students' answers. What the fuck is the silent applause? I won't look this up. Or indicate their excitement over something that has been said without interrupting the class. The inverted applause by which the protesters show disapproval appears in many classrooms as thumbs down that students use to show that they think the classmate has answered a question incorrectly. Other hand signs, the point of information, they get on with it, are more specific to the needs of the movement. And then we did sparkles is what it means. Sparkles up or sparkles down means you like it or you don't like it. We were made fun of for it, but it was effective when you need it. So this is all really interesting shit. They have their parallels in classroom in the form of, I need a tissue, and I dropped my pencil, I need to get out of my seat. The purpose of all these signs is to allow the crowd to express itself without interrupting the speaker, diffuse focus, and compete for attention. They arise both in the classroom and in Zuccotti Park out of a recognition of the delicate and essential balance by which order and focus are maintained. 30 children, if they are paying attention to the lesson, will not sit still and silent with hands raised while their noses run. Their classmates give wrong answers to questions to which they know the right one, and other classmates get called on to give the correct answer. We would not want them so silent in their knowledge and opinions. Yet we know that if they call out, the order of the classroom will dissolve and more timid will never be heard. Similarly, a crowd of 1,000 who sit still and silent while others make points they disagree with, cannot hear, or do not understand is an apathetic crowd that will never occupy a public park through a nippy October into a cold New York November. There must be means of group expression without interruption, a way for even the quiet to be heard. The values that underlie the procedures of Zuccotti Park are those of the democratic process, that every voice should be heard, that agreement should be reached through discussion, that no opinion is more important than any other. The values that underlie the procedures of the classroom vary from school to school, but they are rarely those of direct democracy. Still, both contexts, why not? That's interesting. Why don't we use the values of direct democracy in the classroom if we really care about democracy? Our classrooms function in authoritarian ways, and then you wonder why you're just raising little authoritarian fucking drones. As people have always criticized modern schooling as just raising little drones for the factory as opposed to free-thinking individuals. But Max misses that point because he doesn't seem like he's sensitive to authoritarian dogma. Still, both contexts represent the attempt to weave the needs and impulses of the individual into the welfare of the group. They are, in short, the essence of management, but management in its pure form, in which it is revealed not as a project of oversight to supervision, not as a project of oversight and supervision, but one of facilitated cooperation. No classroom and no company and no organization really functions by coercion. Even the most coercive methods are really attempts, rather blunt attempts, to generate a social contract. The fear of punishment and the desire for a reward cannot keep kids in line for the long term. It is a habit and classroom culture that keeps them in line. Fear and desire are simply tools that we try to use to set the culture in motion. After the crowd had exited the park, it milled about the surrounding streets and sidewalks, chanting and playing drums until it was finally dispersed by the police. At the north end of the park, a line of mounted officers stood between the milling crowd and the arch, and the crowd directed a number of chants at the officers. "Who do you protect?" they chanted, and "courtesy, professionalism, respect," and "you deserve a raise." They even got a smile from one of the cops by chanting, "Set the horses free." At one point, a girl standing on the curb started chanting, "NYPD, go to hell." She managed to get just that far before she was booed into silence by the other protesters. Respect is an essential ingredient of any social contract, and the protesters, energized and rebellious as they were, had not for a moment forgotten it. So that's interesting. See, Max is smart about, that's a very intelligent, articulate insight into our organizing, and he was recognizing that's a big part of Occupy Wall Street is I would generalize it out more to political theories and how that's libertarian anarchist in nature, because then you get to tap into the whole history of those theories, and then we can learn from them, and when they devolved into violence or reactionary measures, when they the purity became the poison, or when maybe technology is making some of those ideals more practical. Maybe technology is allowing us to better. Have we really had a strike, a universal strike in the modern digital connected age? Have we had we've probably had new attempts at communes, but identify. That's what I really like, the ideas I came up with back when I was at my folks' house making all those speeches mixed with music. I was being really idealistic in my own little bubble. I had a lot of energy and passion. I had taken off a lot of insecurities. I hadn't taken off the money one, which is invading the Occupy Wall Street stuff too. But I'd taken off the love one. I had the good relationship, and I'd just gone through on a tour of California. We ended up from the northern part of California to the state capital, which is still a good territory. And we talked to a couple dozen people, and we had those hours of footage, over 16, 17 hours, all lost to YouTube, copyright infringement stuff. But I identify and replace violent systems is where I was at. And that kind of is an inclusive dialogue that could include all the political ideologies and just let's identify the bad ones and let's just replace them and define violence as getting your needs met at the expense of someone else. That's all. But as for Max's insight's really cool, just organizational wise, and the fact that he's a teacher, so he's relating it to the classroom. It's really cool insight. I could see how he could be manipulated by authoritarians who just want efficient